Are the Lightning the most snake-bitten team in the NHL when it comes to injuries? Was the Yanni Gord Oliver Bjorkstrand trade a good move? And is there some bias across the NHL when it comes to Nikita Kucherov? These are all the stories of the year we're tackling on today's Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, we want to begin with a shout out to our everydayers. Those of you who tune in every single show, every single day, we love you. We appreciate the support you give us week in, week out. I'm Nick Morgan, and I am joined by the eggnog to my Woodford Reserve Double Oak, Greg Stephen. Greg, welcome in, my friend.
Welcome in. Good morning. Woodford Reserve with eggnog. Okay.
Hey, anything goes well with eggnog, man. And also everything goes well with Woodford.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Today, part 2 of our top Bolt stories of the year for 2025. We're going to be looking back at some of the big things that happened this year for the Tampa Bay Lightning and look ahead to see how those storylines impact the Lightning moving forward. If you missed part 1 yesterday, that is up on our YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. So dive in to hear more about everyone's favorite topic, how much the Florida Panthers are jerks. That's basically the summary from the episode. Also, how Isaac Howard is a jerk.
Yeah,
He might just be a kid trying to, get his hockey career off the ground. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't blame him.
On today's show, we're going to be talking about the insane injury woes for the Tampa Bay Lightning at the start of the 2025-26 season and how the Lightning have managed to survive that so far. And does that impact anything moving forward for the team this year? We're also going to be looking back. Speaking of a little trade deadline hint, we're going to be looking back at the Yanni Gord Oliver Bjorkstrand trade that happened at the last deadline. It was a little bit controversial at the time. Now that we've had almost a full year to digest it, how do we think about it now? And Nikita Kucherov, back-to-back Art Ross wins, but still not mentioned a lot in the Hart Trophy conversation and not mentioned a lot when it comes to the list of best players in the NHL. Is there a little bit of bias towards Cooch? These are all stories that we will be tackling today. Before we dive in, do want to mention today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. All right, Greg, let's get into what, to me, has been the biggest story of the 2025-26 season so far.
Yeah.
And that's the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we hit the Christmas break, only three players on the team, Yanni Gord, Jake Guentzel, Oliver Bjorkstrand, had appeared in every single game for the Lightning this season.
Yep.
That is an insane list. JJ Moser wasn't hurt, but he was suspended for 2 games. Obviously,
Right.
Hagel was dealing with an issue. You had Emil Lilleberg go on long-term injured reserve. Everybody from Kucherov to Darren Raddysh to Zemgus Girgensons to Braden Point. All of these guys missed time this year at certain points. And obviously, we're still dealing with Lilleberg's injury. We're still dealing with Victor Hedman's injury. We might not see them again until, right before the Olympic break.
Right.
Greg, I don't remember. And honestly, part of me includes that cursed 2017 season. I don't remember this level of decimation when it comes to injuries. I mean, it seems like every game a key player is getting taken out.
Yeah. I mean, how many episodes have we had where it's like another one?
Yeah.
It's remarkable. I haven't seen the team this injured in a long, long time. And I think you opened the show by saying, are they the most snake-bitten team with injuries in the league? And I would say absolutely. I mean, I can't name another team that's even had half the injuries. I mean, you could maybe throw in the Panthers because they've lost Barkov and Tkachuk, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's still just 2 guys. And while the Lightning did lose key players at certain times, they've had more than 4 or 5 guys on the IR or on the out list at once. I mean, it's truly remarkable. And to see them where they are right now with how awful the injuries have been, I would say is just impressive. I mean, I think most teams with this kind of injury list would be, bottom, I'll say 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, remarkable stuff, but also just such a curse. I mean, when does it end? It's like, it feels like I'm almost expecting it at this point. We're going to get into this break and I'm going to think, oh, the roster's getting pretty healed up. We got some guys coming back. The team looks sharp again. And then, I just don't know. I don't know anymore, man. I kind of feel like we're going to have a couple more episodes about these.
Yeah. Tune in to see who is injured next week. But
exactly.
no, in terms of most games, man games missed to injury this year.
Yeah.
The Lightning are 3rd.
Wow.
Behind Vegas, who has a couple people on long-term IR.
Okay.
And Florida, who has a couple players who have yet to play a game this season. So
right.
It makes sense, but when you also kind of take long-term IR out of the equation, and it's just guys who have been hurt at certain points this season, not necessarily had like a long off-season surgery like Tkachuk or, the issue that Barkov dealt with. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning who have been hurt most in this year.
Yeah,
which is an insane stat.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat, and I mean, it's everyone. That's the thing. It's crazy how many defensemen it's been as well. At one time, nonetheless, like it's just a bunch of them. I mean, what was it? 2 games ago, you had, I think, 4 of your starting defensemen not be playing. Is that what it is? I think, and it was, what's it? Cernak, McDonough, Hedman, Lilleberg, I think was the 4.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then to still win games is just nuts. And look, you had Vasi go down, right? I mean, he's been out.
Was hurt. Yeah.
And then Braden Point sat, I think, 7 games. And then you've seen even Kucherov. I think he's had 2 or 3 illnesses at this point where he's sat a game or 2 here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It is. And the fact that they still have like all this chemistry that they've showed, especially like, let's talk about that Hurricanes game. You see the depth step up and they just look great. And even some of the key guys were playing great. I mean, Guentzel notched 2 goals in that game. Just really remarkable. It is to see how resilient this team is.
Yeah. It is insane how much that they've had to, and we talked about it. Like it seems like every time it seems like they were heading towards a breaking point where it's just like the collapse is coming. They found ways to win. And look, we mentioned one of the guys that played, the entire season so far is Jake Guentzel. Yeah. He stepped up huge in some of these games.
Oh yeah.
With people out of the lineup. And look, Nikita Kucherov missed a few games, but we've also seen how many games where he had like 2, 3, 4 points.
Right.
When you had an AHL roster from the second line on down. So it's just, we have seen guys step up and shoulder more of the load. We talk about the injuries on the blue line. To me, one of the other bigger stories of the year is who stepped up there. Darren Raddysh. This was a guy who we thought was not going to make the team.
Right.
We were saying, it's like, look, we know he can do, we know he's a great offensive defenseman, but John Cooper, the stats show he's not trusting him on defense to play defense. He was healthy scratched at certain points this year, and he's come in and he's looked like a top pair scoring defenseman.
Yeah, he 180'd.
And he's scoring points, but he's also playing really solid hockey in his own end. JJ Moser, another guy, he's sometimes played with Victor Hedman on that top pair. He's been moved around some other times. He's been the lockdown guy on that first pair. So, I mean, look, injuries are the story for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Greg, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the other guys who have stepped up and elevated their game because of injuries.
Yeah, 100%. And you know me, I'm a big round of applause guy.
You are a big round of applause guy.
How about John Cooper, though?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
You mentioned this, I think, I don't know, a few weeks back. You said, is this a Jack Adams worthy like position to be in as a coach? To juggle all of this
Yeah.
and still have a successful team that's competing, at a high level. I mean, I would say absolutely.
He's not going to win
No, of course not.
because that's just, I think I'm going to hold my tongue on Jack Adams voters because I'm sure there's some listening, but it's always like this team wasn't supposed to be good and now they're made the second spot in their division. Like
Right.
it's always that, or just like the team that is supposed to be good but is really really good, like the Colorado Avalanche this year. It's always those coaches that seem to win the Jack Adams. But if you're looking just based on coaching job, like a team that had to overcome a bunch of different stuff and somehow played well without missing too much of a beat. This should be the coaching job that everybody looks at John Cooper and says, this is a like one of the best coaching jobs we've seen, because he has taken so much BS when it comes to injuries, suspensions, weird NHL interference of certain whatever you want to call the Panthers situation, and he's handled it really, really well. And I die on the hill of this being one of John Cooper's best coaching jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. I think it's one of his best seasons for sure. I mean, it's just so impressive to juggle such a difficult situation as effectively as he has and, emerge victorious in my eyes.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Greg, we've talked about so many players stepping up, everything like that. Is there, I guess the way to maybe wrap this up in a neat little bow is, what is your concern level for the second half of the year in terms of, can they keep this up?
I'm not concerned. And you know why not? Because I just don't see how it could possibly ever get worse than it has been in this first half.
Fair point.
And if they made it through the first half, I mean, there's no real reason to not make it through the second, unless you believe that, with all this happening, it's just going to wear out some guys like Guentzel who has played so many minutes because of the injuries, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see that being true. I think they're going to be fine. I think you heal up during this short break coming up, then you have the Olympic break to chill, and I think they're going to be totally fine. I think they're going to come back strong, full roster, and we're going to see them go on a hot streak again. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I hope the wheels don't fall off. I think it is a valid concern to ask, are they going to run out of gas eventually?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping it's not this time. So
right.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the players who have stepped up can continue doing that at a high level through the Olympic break.
Yep.
And then I think you're going to get some players back in the lineup, and hopefully this makes the Lightning a stronger team for it. But
for sure,
one of the big things coming up, Greg, is going to be the trade deadline. And that's going to be a question mark. Do they address some of these injury concerns at the deadline? Last year, they made a big swing and got Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gord from the Seattle Kraken in a big trade. A lot of people were a little iffy about it then. How do we feel about it now? Let's dive into that conversation in just 1 second when Locked On Lightning returns. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is awesome, but being in the building is a totally different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Between all the long queues, the endless screens, and prices that seem to jump right before you check out, that's where Game Time comes in. It gives the advantage back to fans like me and you. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The zone deals are absolutely a clutch feature. You just choose the section of the arena you want to sit in, and Game Time picks the seats for you, saving you even more. One of my favorite things to use is the view from my seat feature. You can see the exact view of the seats before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting into. Also, I really love that the fees are included up front. So the price you see is the price you pay. You're not going to be surprised by fees at checkout. And knowing tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee, gives you real peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. We're back on Locked On Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Stephen. And Greg, let's talk about the trade deadline deal that I think a lot of people around the NHL kind of raise their eyebrows a little bit. The Tampa Bay Lightning get Yanni Gord, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and a 2026 fifth-round pick this year. The Bolts send 2 first-round picks winds up going to the Seattle Kraken. Your boy, Mikey Eyssimont, and another second-round pick from this past draft. Detroit was also involved as a salary negotiator, and they got a 4th-round pick from somewhere, maybe us. I don't know. I can't remember. There's so much to this trade, but if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, send 2 future first-round picks to Seattle for Yanni Gord and Oliver Bjorkstrand. A lot of people at the time were like, this seems like a bit of an overpay. Greg, what were your thoughts on it then, and how have they changed till today?
Great question. Initially, I was running my own little Lightning account at the time, and I think I graded it a B-. And I graded it that because, in my mind, Bjorkstrand's a great player. Yanni is one of my favorite Bolts of all time. So to see him come back was awesome. I think it felt like they were really targeting Bjorkstrand, and Yanni was a little bit of a bonus. And at the time, I was such an advocate for finding a defenseman.
Yeah.
And to see them go for 2
not
forwards.
just you, everybody, I think, was.
Right. And then to see them go for just like 2 forwards was just puzzling for me. And yeah, initially, I'm just going to outright say it. I disliked it. And it sucks to say that because, again, I am a huge Yanni Gord fan. I don't have anything, honestly, I don't have anything against either of these players. I think they're both excellent. Yeah. But it was more, this doesn't feel like what this team needs at this time. And now that I'm looking at it, I think Yanni was the bigger return than Bjorkstrand. And Yanni has looked like a revitalized younger version of himself since returning to Tampa Bay. You can just see when he's in Tampa, he's just a whole different guy. He just thrives here. Not that he didn't do a great job over in Seattle, but I think he just looks like a new player again. And I think, again, coming over here to Tampa, which I would label his home at this point, he looks like a new man. And I've really appreciated Yanni being back. Bjorkstrand has been okay. I think Yanni has been the bigger return over Bjorkstrand, which was not what I expected. I thought Bjorkstrand was going to do a lot more damage. And now I'm still in the boat where I think you got to get a defenseman this time around. But nonetheless, I would grade this probably still about a B or B+, I think. Yeah. And I think for me, it's the 2 first-round picks going. I'm not a huge picks guy in trading, to be honest with you. I don't really value. I'm like JBB. I don't value them super highly. But still 2 firsts for these 2 guys, and then giving away my guy, Mikey Eyssimont.
I will say that, yeah.
Mikey Eyssimont, he's my guy. I love that guy. Energy ball, physical. He's one of those guys, 100% effort. Like I almost wish I could see Eyssimont play with Dominic James and Gage Gonçalves. But regardless, I don't know. I don't think this is an excellent trade by any means. I don't think it's a bad, terrible, awful trade either. Somewhere in the middle. But yeah, again, I think I was really looking for a defenseman is really my biggest concern.
Yeah. I'm with you. I thought Oliver Bjorkstrand was the headliner of this, but it's also, I go back and forth because it's also an opportunity to get a guy like Yanni Gord back who has chemistry who works well with some of the core of this team.
Yep.
And who you've had history of putting him in a few different positions for him to succeed.
Right.
It's I thought it was an overpay, and I understand JBB's mindset of, look, we're not. I think he said after the trade, it's like, look, we're good right now. Like our cup window is right now.
Right.
A 28th overall pick 2 years from now isn't going to help us win a Stanley Cup this year or next year. Yanni, Gord, for Bjorkstrand can.
Yeah.
I do wonder how long this is going to keep going on. And like I said, they are top 10 protected. So if the Lightning just absolutely the wheels fall off next year and they finish in the lottery, they're going to have a chance for, a game-changing player.
Yeah.
I think for me, I don't know. Like I appreciate trades like this. I love the team getting better. It's just, how many more first round picks are you going to be willy-nilly about in order to get, depth players?
Yeah. Like a win now.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think you also maybe lose some ammo for a big trade if you need it.
Right.
Like, look, you don't have like a 2027 first round pick or first round pick this year to go out at the deadline and get a defenseman, and maybe a really good defenseman. And maybe you look at the salary cap and you're like, well, we're not really in a position to do that anyway. Or you look at your roster and say, we're set with our core. We don't need to do that. I don't know. For me, I'm wondering just, you got to talk about asset management a little bit.
Yeah.
And you got to ask, like, we're giving away 2 first round picks here. Quinn Hughes just got traded for, 2 first round picks.
Right.
Heavy of other prospects too, but it's just like, what other deals could you be making for those? And that to me, I think is the core of this debate. Is I look at that and it's like, was this the best way to spend 2 first round picks? I don't know. I still don't know. I'm on the fence. Like if come back to me in June to see if we've won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my take on it, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's valid. I think for me, again, it's just about what it was. I think you're right. You're kind of giving up stuff for now's deadline. And I think at this point, if you're going to make a big splash at the current deadline that's coming up, then you're probably sacrificing pieces that are on your roster right now. And is that really what you wanted to do, just to get Yanni and Bjorkstrand? I think you raise a good point. It's up for debate. But I think if you're the Lightning right now, after seeing how many defensemen have gone down, this is a defenseman deadline for us. I'm not going to be happy if they go for forwards again.
Yeah, I feel like you need to at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. The other big story of the year, Nikita Kucherov, second time in as many years, leads the NHL in scoring. And it just doesn't seem like awards voters are really all in on him, Greg. And even some of our own Locked On hosts are not very high on Nikita Kucherov. Let's dive into our take on Kucherov's, let's just say, elite status in the NHL, and whether or not there may be some bias against him for whatever reason. Let's dive in when Locked On Lightning continues. We are back on Locked On Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Stephen. And Greg, the other big story from this past year was Nikita Kucherov finishing first in the NHL in scoring for the second consecutive year. Big kudos. You're a big round of applause guy. So let's give Nikita Kucherov a little round of applause. But it's funny because you don't hear a lot of people talk about Nikita Kucherov around the league. Obviously, the year before, Nikita Kucherov did gangbusters. 144 points. It led the league. He had 100 assists. He had more points than Connor McDavid that season.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he lost the MVP to Nathan MacKinnon, who I should point out also had 140 points. So it's not like he was just, a distant memory there. But I think the big thing to me was how much of a blowout it was in voting. Nikita Kucherov, 50 first place votes. McKinnon had 137. You go to the next year, Nikita Kucherov again leads the NHL on scoring, 121 points. He is a distant third in the voting behind Connor Hellebuck, who had 81 first place votes, and Leon Draisaitl, who had 53 first place votes. In fact, Nikita Kucherov had fewer first place votes than the guy who finished in first, Nathan MacKinnon, behind him. It really begs the question to me, Greg. And this isn't just about awards voting either, because you hear talk around the league and who the elite players are. You hear Connor McDavid, you hear Leon Draisaitl, Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon. If we talk to you, Macklin Celebrini's in that list. We hear all this talk about elite NHL players, and Nikita Kucherov has not been up in that tier. He's not mentioned a lot in that tier. Is there something we as Lightning fans are missing or not seeing? Are we being biased, or is there bias against him?
I think there are a ton of ways to approach this conversation. The first way that I'll approach it is Kucherov's just general demeanor. And I think it hurts him more than it helps him. And the reason I say that is because let's talk about Nathan MacKinnon for a minute. Mm-hmm. He's a very personable guy, very positive.
Unless you eat junk food.
What?
Unless you eat junk food.
Right. He's willing to talk to media pretty regularly. Gives 100% effort at whatever NHL events he's asked to attend, right? And then you kind of look at Kucherov, and the All-Star game kind of comes to my mind. Yeah. And you watch Kucherov deliberately give what I'll call a half-ass effort, and I think a lot of people would take that as disrespect. And to be honest with you, I can't stand the All-Star game, and I don't blame him at all. But I know a lot of other people would, and I can see why, and I understand why. The other thing is, let's talk Kucherov's media availability. Rare. I mean, almost non-existent, right? Unless he's already won the cup, or there's just some random miracle day where he just decides he's going to say a few words, but he's just not a super personable guy. And I think that works against him in these types of conversations, because he doesn't really put his face out there outside of, being an insane hockey player.
He's not being advertised.
Right. And I think that again, it does work against him when it comes to like voting for certain things, or, talking about who's the best, and because he doesn't come to your mind as much in general. Mm-hmm. The other way I want to approach this is just Russia bias. I mean, we're in America here, right? I mean, I don't think a lot of people want to give a native Russian the attention that they're giving guys like McDavid and MacKinnon. I think that's just the way the world works, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just think that's kind of how things work in the media.
But I want to poke holes in that argument a little bit, because Artemi Panarin.
Yeah.
Now that's a guy that every single person, I think, in the NHL, and Panarin hasn't looked like himself in a couple years.
Right.
But you talk about Artemi Panarin, it's like, oh, this Bread man's so dangerous. Like he's threatening. You got to watch out for him every time he's on the ice. He's Russian, and he gets that. He seems to get like that elite status, or, the guy that, gets you up on the edge of your seat every time you play.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. Like, is it really all him?
Can I counterpoint?
Like, is it really all Russia, or is it Nikita Kucherov individually?
Can I counterpoint your counterpoint?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There was a period of time, I think it was, oh God, I'm going to get it wrong. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where Panarin actively spoke out against Putin. Do you remember that?
I don't know.
And he had to
Like,
sit for several games. I think that works in his favor in the eyes of like a typical American.
Yeah. I don't know. We're getting into details here.
I know. I'm just saying.
That are better for CNN than Locked on Lightning, or MSNBC, Fox News. I don't know. Whatever channel you tune into for your political takes.
I'm just saying that plays a role in things. That's all.
It does. I'm going to say bias like this, Greg.
Mhm.
I think it might be bias and the fact that he plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I'm not saying it's like, oh, the Lightning or NHL hates them, blah, 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 blah. I'm saying, he was always second, third, fourth fiddle on the team, especially in their, years. Like, he was by far maybe their best player during those years.
Yeah.
But when you thought about like who represents the Tampa Bay Lightning, your mind went to Steven Stamkos.
Right.
Your mind went to Victor Hedman. Your mind went to Andre Vasilevsky. Around the league, I don't think anybody's really sort of, Nikita Kucherov is like, this is kind of a weird comparison, but he was always like the Mikko Rantanen in that mix. Everybody talks about McDavid or McKinnon, Makar. Nobody really talked about Mikko Rantanen scoring, 115 points a year.
Right.
And I do think that does play a role in it a little bit, where he was always maybe just not necessarily looked at as the guy.
Right.
And that I think is maybe another aspect of it. And look, whatever way, you want to look at it, I think Nikita Kucherov is one of the best players in the league. He's been one of the best players in the league this season. And I think it's just odd that he doesn't get the level of respect some other players who play his style of game play.
Agreed. And let me throw a fun fact at you. Last season, he factored in on more than half of the Lightning's goals. That's an incredible feat.
Yeah, that is certainly a fun fact.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, we're just glad to have Nikita Kucherov on the team because, hey, we like winning games and we like watching exciting hockey, and Nikita Kucherov certainly helps in both those regards. It is going to be interesting over the next year because his contract's coming up, and it is going to be interesting to see how negotiations go on that, especially with the increased salary cap coming up. Those were our top Bolt stories of 2025. Again, if you missed part 1, go back on our YouTube page and watch it, or it's also available wherever you get your audio podcast. Tomorrow, Greg is going to be looking at the top NHL storylines of the year. We will not have a show New Year's Day, but then we will be back the day after with a look at the Lightning stories we're most excited for in 2026. A lot coming up on Locked on Lightning, so be sure to stay tuned throughout the year. That is going to do it for us on today's Locked on Lightning. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.